Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're so glad to welcome you as part of our community tonight. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and distributed live stream. By entering this virtual meeting room, you give your consent to be recorded and distributed by Vienna Live with Simeon Morrow and other third parties. If you prefer to not be recorded, please go to the LinkedIn Live video feed, the link to which I have just placed in the chat room. Tonight, our featured guest is Daniel Pardo, Assistant Professor of Flute at Prairie View A&M University in Houston, Texas, and a Yamaha performing artist. Daniel's new album, Ese Momento, will be the subject of tonight's conversation. Daniel, welcome.
Thank you, Simeon. Hello, and hello, everybody.
Daniel, so tell us a little bit about where you come from, how your musical tastes were formed, and why you decided to become a professional flutist.
Thank you, Simeon. So, yes, my name is Daniel Pardo, and I'm from Bogota, Colombia. And, well, I started playing flute last century, towards the end. And I've been going at it since. This was after high school that I started playing. And, well, since I grew up in Colombia, Latin music, that is what I was hearing on the radio and cassettes and LPs. They have a lot of flute that is improvising in the music, and there's a lot of melodies. And when I was growing up, my parents used to listen to instrumental music. Little did I know that I became kind of like addicted to recordings of Beethoven when I was in my teens, and I thought it was like the coolest thing. So I started studying classical music, classical flute, but I would play Colombian music, like Colombian folkloric music in restaurants. And then in the evenings, I would play with salsa bands in clubs. So it was a whole thing. I was studying classical music, but really I didn't know at that time that I was getting all the education and like street music and bar music and different styles that eventually became a bulk of what I do. It's not that I was going to be a jazz musician, but just to be a musician. And so I've studied classical music, and then when I moved into the US, I continued in the military bands, and there I was playing in classical ensembles, but also improvising in jazz ensembles, and so everything kind of went hand in hand.
Daniel, so you've been performing as a professional flutist then already since you were a teenager, is that right?
I guess so, yes. Because you can start very soon, like 3 weeks after I started playing flute, I was asked at the church, "Can you play this?" And I showed up with the flute, and I knew a few notes, and they're like, "Good. So you play the intro. Here we go." And I just assumed that that's how it worked, that you just had to come up with stuff. And so that was the beginning.
Okay, let's have a listen to a song, another song from this track, and this is Babel. Daniel, so now tell us about this new album, Ese Momento. I'm a little bit confused because it's an album of classic bolero, but what we just heard does not sound anything like what I think about when I think about bolero, which is Maurice Ravel in his bolero.
Ah,
Tell us about this album.
well, yeah, thank you. So it's one of those curious things that we have in music where the same word can be used for different things. So there used to be, well, there is a style of music that is Spanish that was from the 18th and 17th centuries. That is eventually what Ravel would work on. That is a dance and a style of music that it is actually in three, so it's a little different. Like Ravel is like dum da 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 tun da 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 3 and 1. So the beginning is kind of similar, like the beginning of the styles. That was guitar and voice, and then they dance. In Central American bolero, which was born in Cuba, is different because it is in four, so the counting is different. But I think stylistically they kind of started the same because it was guitars and voice, and there's dance that goes with this. So maybe that's the connection. I'm not quite sure, but it's very separate. There's no influence because musically they behave completely different. And so the CD is a collection of boleros from the 20th century, early 20th century, that, well, obviously there's a new take on things. There's always the expansion of styles. And so we try some more Latin jazz approach and some sophisticated orchestrations. So there are variants within the CD. There's a very modern version of things, and there are other traditional versions. There's a small jazz combo versions and orchestral jazz. So the theme is boleros, but the exploration within the music goes in different flavors.
Okay, let's have another listen then. This is Como Fue, which I believe, if my Spanish is not completely off, has something to do with as it was. So that's a good lead segue to our bolero conversation. tell us about producing this album, Danielle. We heard a lot of different flutes performing this. Tell us, how did you produce this album, and what do you look for? How did you, in a musician, how did you know I want that musician to play on this album? I believe
Mhm.
the first orchestra track we heard was actually the Czech National Symphony Orchestra.
That's right. Yes, and we were very fortunate to have a plethora of musicians participating on this recording, and everything was born with this. About a 10-year collaboration with a dear friend, Sergio Pamies, who is the arranger of the production, and he's a pianist, who you hear throughout the recording. And well, we were trying to go for something that would join the world of jazz, the world of classical performance, and everything we know about production. So there's a lot of layering. As you mentioned, there are multiple flutes, for instance, in that track. So I multi-track everything, and we wrote all the music to everything, every detail is accounted for. Like the minutes of the orchestration, we know that there's 14 minutes of total of string playing in the CD, because everything was accounted for in pre-production. And choosing the musicians, this is a collection of, well, friendships first of all, and I think that's one of the most important things. Of course, when you're going to record, you look for the best musicians available, and I was kind of lucky enough to know them all. But more than that, that we have a connection of friendship, and one that allows us that when we're playing, there's something a little deeper than just hearing the sounds together, but it's more like you can hear the connection. And that's what we hope for. But the musicians that are participating in this recording are friends and artists with whom, when I play together, we feel like there's a connection, there's something deeper that goes beyond the sound. So in that element, the warmth is definitely key to this, because this is romantic music. Also, not romantic in the European sense of 19th century, but this is the true romance. This is all about poetry. This is about tenderness. It's a certain sensibility and vulnerability that is hidden within the lyrics and within the expression. So looking for the musicians was looking for a connection, and that kind of ties into the title track, Ese Momento. That is, it's about a moment of magic, a moment of connection. So that's where the musicians and every detail in this production came from.
And tell us about, again, this friendship is really, really essential to this album, Ese Momento. And as you said, if you decide to perform with a musician, the friendship is really important. Tell us about this friendship between you and the arranger, Sergio Pamies.
Oh, well, we met at school when we were studying at the University of North Texas, and he was arranging for a lot of people, and I was recording a lot of people. I work a lot in production. So we started collaborating, and we went from project to project to project to project, and we developed a friendship, also a style of work. And then we were recording certain musicians. We were like, wow, we really connect with them. And so by this point, 10 years later, the making of this production was, like talking, for instance, to our friend Lupe, the drummer. He's like, Lupe, you do your thing. To bass, Young, you do your thing. You know exactly what you're doing. So it's like this beautiful thing where we can trust the musical material to those who were joining. And in some cases, actually several cases, the music is designed for those specific people. I don't know if this is the next excerpt that we're going to have, but there's a piece, Bésame Mucho, that is only with Shango Deli, percussionist, and myself. I've known Shango since since last century again. We started in college in Colombia together. And so this is kind of like a celebration of the many productions that we've done together, and all the concerts, all the things that we've done through life.
Let's take a look. Bésame mucho. this brings us to our philosophical portion of the conversation that I know everyone always looks forward to every Wednesday. And the title of this philosophical conversation is Where Does National Music Stop and quote unquote world music begin? Of course, Danielle, you keep mentioning the importance of the last century. Of course, at the last decade of the last century, interesting recording label called World Music started popping up, and so we're going to dive into that right now, Daniel. And its glowing endorsement of your new album, the periodical The Flute View, states, quote, whether you are a lifelong fan of boleros or discovering the genre for the first time, Ese Momento is an album that invites listeners to slow down, reflect, and savor the beauty of these classic songs. Daniel Pardo's interpretation is both refined and impassioned, offering a fresh take on boleros that will appeal to a wide audience. His artistry, combined with the timeless appeal of the music, makes Ese Momento a must-listen. With this release, Daniel Pardo not only celebrates the tradition of Latin American boleros, but also elevates it, reminding us of the power of music to evoke emotion and connect us across cultures, end quote. I started the show by asking you if Bolero was that cool orchestral piece by Maurice Ravel, Daniel. When Maurice wrote Bolero in 1928, popular faith in nationalism as opposed to internationalism or globalism or worldism, world music, for instance, was at an all-time high. Ravel's Bolero, as the French pronounce it, was neither Latin American nor German. It was a product of France. A French bolero. How so, you ask? Well, for one, Ravel's bolero would surely be used to lift French morale during the nation's impending fight against Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany surely had heard, but didn't take pride in Ravel's popular bolero. They probably preferred to fight to the sound of their own music. Daniel, you were born in Colombia, educated in the United States, and are a proud veteran of the United States military. Is Daniel Pardo's bolero a Colombian bolero? Or is it a U.S. American bolero? Or even a Houston 2024 bolero from the city from which you join us and you've made your home?
Well, this is such an interesting subject because, well, none of these boleros are from Colombia. Let's say the composers. The composers are mainly from Mexico, from Cuba, and so none of them are from my country. The next thing is that the lyrics of each of these boleros reflects on vulnerable love, not really on a specific place or nation or this, but the core of this is a feeling, a human feeling. Then a deeper layer, I think, is that by being instrumental, we even deploy from a specific language. So the lyrics could be so beautiful, but if they're in a language that you don't understand, then it's a little hard to connect. Now, by making it instrumental, I think is more about the human experience, about all of us, no matter where we are from. But it's about that, and I would definitely say it's about a take on a feeling that all humans experience, but it has the warmth of the Caribbean. It has the warmth of the Mediterranean, and that's what it is. It's pretty much the same feeling that is across any culture, across all human beings, but with a flavor that we have in the Caribbean. That's what it is.
And so when you say bolero, what do you want us to? You want us to imagine that what we just saw in the Bésame Mucho, where you're together with your friends making music in this, how do I say, a utopia of where music is bringing friends together to celebrate this moment.
Right, is utopic and is a conjunction of several things. Bolero itself, the lyrics are poetry. They're just beautiful, more traditional version. It's not just I love you, but the way of saying I love you is so complex in portraying beauty, very complex beauty. Then we have harmony that comes from the sophistication of jazz. That is a continuation of what Ravel was doing. It started with Rimsky-Korsakov, went through Ravel, and it has explored things in the United States with the continuation of harmony, portraying beauty and emphasizing beauty. And we have melodies that, even without lyrics, they are interesting and they can keep even 4 minutes or 6 minutes of music together. So it's combining rhythms that come from Africa, sophistication of the harmony that comes from the classical European tradition and the jazz tradition, and poetry of people who are artists who are vulnerable, who are exposing the deepest sentiments of love.
I have trouble thinking that Maurice Ravel, the maître, would not smile hearing this and not say, my bolero is trying to get exactly that. And that's what he imagined a bolero to be. So let's listen to our final track of the evening. This is Vida Loca. Final question of the evening, Danielle. What do you wish those who listen to this album, if Maurice Ravel is listening to tonight to our show, let's hope he is, what do you wish he takes away and all of us take away from this album, Ese Momento?
Well, I would hope, well, first of all, thank you for listening to my music. And I think what it would be great is to see how the power of music for us to go beyond nations, beyond frontiers, beyond languages, and to see that we are enjoying this human experience together. Especially now that we're all kind of like dedicated to our phone screens and to digital stuff, is this work is an homage to something purer and like dedicated to a feeling, the feeling of love. And so this is a moment, like a parenthesis in our busy lives, to enjoy that, to remember that we are here in the human experience doing it all and celebrating either through music or through any kind of cultural, artistic endeavor, the fact that we are alive and enjoying day by day. So thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy.
Let's see how we can listen to this album, Ese Momento. It's easy enough. We go to Daniel's website, danielpardo.com, and Pardo is spelled Pardo. So danielpardo.com. And Daniel, so we can listen to the album and buy it here. Is that right? We can see those awesome music videos we saw and then listen to it
That's
directly
right.
here. Is that right?
Yes, and there are links to different sites, so it is available everywhere. If you, especially if you're in Europe, there may be a little trickier to get the physical copy, but you can certainly listen to it on Spotify, iTunes, or whatever it's called, Apple Music maybe is now, and Amazon. So it is just about everywhere. YouTube too.
And Daniel, if we'd like to reach out to you, if anyone would want to say hi, ask you about Bolero, ask you about your incredible career you've had and where you're headed next, they can simply write you an email or a message here at danielpardo.com.
Absolutely, yes. There's a form at the bottom of the website, I think in all pages, that is a direct communication that gets to my email. So I'll be happy to listen from anyone and make new friends and connect and see what the future brings. So
And
yes,
here,
please get in touch.
and here we're looking at the email. Direct email is simply daniel@danielpardo.com. Thank you so very much to Daniel Pardo.
Thank you, Simeon. And thank you, everybody. It was great to meet you.
So let's take just quickly a look before we say goodbye this Wednesday at simeonmoro.com, where you can find all information about upcoming shows. It's easy enough to get there. And while you're there, you can sign up also for the weekly email I send out on Friday saying hi and giving exclusive insights to the upcoming artists of the upcoming Wednesday and my deep thoughts about that subject material, exclusive insights. That's at simeonmoro.com, where you can find all information about upcoming shows. Once again, thank you so very much to Daniel Pardo. Thank you to Vienna Live sponsors Victoria and Frederick Mulligan. Thank you to Abby Moser, Agnieszka, and Benoit Rivolet and Mary Schlesinger for their support of this show. Thanks to my cousin Mike, a marketer from Layer App. If you are an architect or an engineer, they have a really cool tool you should check out. Thanks most of all to you, our participants who make it all worthwhile. From New London, New Hampshire, and Houston, Texas, goodbye, and see you next Wednesday.
Goodbye.